What's up guys, John Joffrey with Revent Builds in Austin, Texas. We're out here in Terrytown at one of our ADU remodels. So if you remember, this was an existing garage. It was just one story with a carport. So it was a one-car garage, carport. And if you remember, we poured 20 tons of concrete just for this slab. New cap, new slab completely on this area. But now we have a fully framed little house right here. Let me show y'all what's up. Okay, so first off, framing is done right now. I mean, there's still a lot of corrections to make, but now we've actually moved into what's called mechanical rough. So as you can see, all of our HVAC duct is roughed into the wall. So we get our registers set, we have our air handler up in the attic. So all of this stuff is kind of mapped out with the architect in the beginning, but of course, nothing is exactly like it is on paper. So we come in, we get with our HVAC contractors. We've had to put some chases where I'll show you upstairs, which is moving that air down here. And then, depending on the orientation of our trusses, obviously these duct runs can only go horizontal. We cannot go, I guess, north to south here. We have to run east and west, or we'd have to cut these trusses, and that is a no-no. So right now, if you remember, this portion of the house is inside the setback. It is also underneath a power line where new building codes would not allow this structure to be here. It is non-compliant. So all of this stuff, we had to keep these walls and kind of frame around it. So the second story starts about here. We have some interesting kind of roof lines. So if you look, this is that existing portion of the roof line that we're not allowed to touch. So we have to keep all of that ceiling the same. We couldn't lift this up. And this is our new ceiling for everything that we're doing above. So just talking about, we had to meet on site with our architect, and we're just looking at how do these roof lines meet. And that's always just something that we're adjusting on site. And I think it actually came out really well here. Okay, so as you can see, all of our walls are covered in plywood. This is actually called sheathing. So basically what we do is we sheathe the whole exterior. And then on top of that, we put what's called a water vapor barrier. So if you see just those paper, usually people use Tyvek, that's the name brand, but there's a bunch of different other systems. We commonly use Tyvek, that was spec'd out on this project. So next stage is we're gonna come back with our Tyvek, which is like a vinyl material that makes this waterproof. We tape all the joints, we tape around windows, around door frames, all that good stuff. I'll probably do a separate video on that. But right now, what we've done is we've roughed in all of our windows per plan. So all of those windows are gonna get waterproofed. All the Tyvek is gonna go on. And then our next stage is gonna be what's called cornice, where some of it's done. We put in a soffit that's just under our eaves. We have fascia there. Cornice is basically all just kind of dealing with waterproofing. So next stage is we get our Tyvek on, then we do our windows, and then we're gonna do siding on top of that. But what's amazing is now you can just see the house. We can walk in it, we can kind of feel what it looks like, and it just takes it out of the conceptual into the actual. Come upstairs, because it's pretty cool up there. Okay, first thing that I want to talk about along with the stairs is we're doing a floating landing here. So that means it's not supported down to the floor. So if you remember downstairs, when you look up in the ceiling, you see those manufactured trusses spanning from the exterior walls. So what we do is those manufactured trusses land right here. So what our structural engineer spec'd out is this is just, you know, holding the stringers right now. We kind of box this out. But for the rest of it, we take a 2x12, we basically sister it on to the manufactured truss under here. We run that 2x12 6 feet into the frame of the house, and then we'll have 3 2x12s here that make up our floating landing attached to our manufactured trusses. Hello. Okay, so this is the upstairs. If you remember last time, this was like a tree house with all of those cross beams that were holding up our walls. Now you can see this expansive area with the lofted ceiling. Our ridge beam there at the top. We talked about the rafters. Basically, we're gonna insulate this. So this is foam insulation. So we're just gonna spray all of in between the framing members that you see on our OSB of our exterior walls and the roof deck. Then we can just put sheetrock directly over this. As I said before, all of our windows are roughed in. We have our bay window here, which is cantilevered. I am standing outside. This is the exterior wall. This is supported outside of the framing of the house. So when you're sitting on the bench here, it gives you an extra spot that you're not impeding on this living room. What's cool about this, it's a flex space, right? This becomes a living room, an office, or it can just be an awesome studio apartment. Because through here, we have a pocket door and then our bathroom. You see all these ducts around me. Remember, the unit is located in the attic below us. We had to fur out this wall to make a chase so that we can get air up into the ceiling and then supplying the bathroom and blowing out the sidewalls into our living room. Okay, so I wanna show y'all, we've talked a lot about setbacks, buildable lines, where we had to pop up our second story. Now you can see, this is the existing roof. Those are the high voltage power lines. So the city allowed us to do a second story, but it had to be 7 feet 6 away from the power lines and a minimum of 10 feet from the rear of the property line, which is our rear setback. So that is exactly where the second story lies. I also want to mention, if you look here, we have our felt paper down. This is what's called a dry-in. So after we get all of our roof decking on, our roofer will come, dry us in. So in the interim, while we're getting all of our ducts in and doing all of our rough, the water, it's not completely watertight, but it's gonna slide down the roof and it's not gonna soak into our plywood if it wasn't there. Okay, so right now, we are super excited, made a ton of progress. Frame is up, our exterior wall sheathing is on. We've actually just gotten through HVAC rough. Now we're moving on to plumbing top out. So we'll be setting all of our drains. We're getting all of our vent lines out of the house. We can start mapping out yard lines and connecting into the main house. After that comes electric rough. So after what's called the rough phase, that means our HVAC, our plumbing, and our electric is roughed into the house. Then we call a City of Austin inspection, which is a group inspection for MEP. That's mechanical, which is HVAC rough, electric rough, plumbing top out, and then our frame. So the city wants to make sure that when we call in our frame, we didn't butcher any of our framing and necessary structural members when we got all those plumbing pipes, the HVAC ducts, and the wiring into the home. So once we pass that, we'll get a clear to insulate. We're gonna foam all of our exterior walls, our roof deck, then we pass an insulation inspection, we get a clear to hang drywall, then we pass a wallboard inspection, and then we are on to finish out. And finish out is one of the funnest parts of the project because every week just something beautiful is going on. You're tiling, you're putting in flooring, you're painting. So I would say right now, we're right on track. We have about 4 months left in this build, and we're gonna keep y'all updated at every stage of the process. Stay tuned. Thank y'all.